Welcome back, everybody, to the next day of the TLDR of Life course. So glad to be bringing you some fresh content here, and hopefully you've dived deep into the last couple of days, last couple of weeks worth of content, and spent time going deep in them and not just spent a few minutes here or there. All right, so kind of to recap where we are right now. The first day, we set intentions for what we want out of this course. Why are you here? What do you want out of this? Just setting the general intention so you can look back on it in weeks, months later on the line, so you can see how much progress you've made, right? And if you've achieved those intentions that you've set for yourself. The next video, the next day, the next week, the next lesson was about writing down all the activities that you've done in the last week, the last month, the last year, the last few years, to encompass everything, right? So now that we've set that foundation for all those activities, right? I wrote down about 200 of those activities. So now we're going to take those activities that we've written down and build upon that foundation and go up a level. And what does that level look like? Or what do I call that level that we go up to? I call them life domains. So life domains, you can name it whatever you want, actually, right? So for the purposes of me and my life operating system, we're going to call them life domains. You can call them buckets. You can call them, domains. You can call them dimensions. You can call them pillars, whatever you want, whatever helps your mind categorize all these activities into different domains, right? So for example, I'm going to share my screen here. And, if you remember back, if you saw the last video, it was about, writing down all the activities here, right? So I wrote down about 200 of these activities. So pretty encompassing and comprehensive of what I've done in the last few years. So now I took a look at all these activities and started to find themes, or some of them were talking to people. Some of this was more work and career related. Some of this was more reflective and just thinking and sitting. Some of this was more activity based, like exercise. Some of this was, learning new types of things, right? And so, going through all these activities, you'll notice themes of several types. Maybe these are habits that you want to inculcate into yourself, right? Whatever those are. All right, so once you kind of start formulating and categorizing these into a few buckets or life domains, right, you're going to kind of start and you're going to write down kind of that brainstorm of list of life domains there. And so, for example, the process that I went through, it's not intended for you to see it close up, but, as you can see, it's kind of like scribbled out, I went through a brainstorming process, spent a good 20, 30 minutes going through, what some of my life domains were. How do I want to change them for this V2 of my life operating system? So for example, some of my life domains from my existing, V1 of my PSI-OS life operating system were, right, where I had about 8 of them, yep. Learning and seeking, health and wellness, human connections, bold ideas, journey documentation, spirituality is fun, financial, and then personal admin / planning / other. So it's kind of a catch-all one. So you can kind of see this was like a learning one, this was a health one, this was a relationships one, this was my projects, basically my big projects. This was kind of my content, blog, podcast, etc. This is more spirituality, life. This is more financial, and this was kind of planning or just other things I want to capture in here, right? And so what you're going to do, kind of spoiled it here, but once you've kind of determined these domains, you're going to rate them from 0 to 100, of 100 being if you realized your maximum potential in that life domain, where are you now compared to that ideal maximum potential, right? So for me, these previous life domains, so there's 8 of them, right? I actually pared it down to 6 for this V2, right? So this is a 30-40 minute process that I went through, just thinking, just reflecting, how do I, just brainstorming, right? And so I came up with these 6 ones. First one was career. This is in no particular order, but this one is career. And I rated that one a 50 out of 100, right? I feel good about where I am right now, but in terms of the potential, I could actually honestly rate it a little bit lower, but I'm being a little bit optimistic here, right? I know I have a lot of potential left. Literally glasses half full or half empty here. It's half, right? And so I have a lot to achieve, but I've started to realize how much I can realize, if that makes sense, right? So next is, career is one life domain, and I rated it 50 out of 100. Next life domain is human connections. So this is basically any of my relationships with family, friends, don't have one, but significant other, coworkers, etc. Right? Anything that would fall into here. I rated it 65 out of 100. And this is, I think I've again, a lot to improve, but I'm making that improvement, making that progress. And I know it's a process, but I'm making those improvements. And right now I'd rate it, about a 65. Next is financial. Obviously, I can live within my means and support myself and be independent. However, where I want to get to, I have a lot of aspirations financially, and I want to achieve those. And so right now I think I'm at a 30 out of what I can ideally achieve out of 100. This is not like, here's my salary and then, do the fraction math to get, 70% left. No, this is not exactly like that, but more of what I can achieve, what's my maximum potential. I can, I have 70%, room for 70 out of 100 room for growth there. Next is health and wellness. I think I'm doing pretty well. Knock on wood. I am pretty healthy. No major afflictions or anything. Let's keep it that way. But, I feel pretty healthy. Obviously, I can get more strength, be faster, stronger, etc. But I am in pretty good health, I would say. So, but obviously still lots of room for improvement. These next two are a little bit more harder to describe, but I will get to it. So if you saw, I had like bold ideas and project or journey documentation in my previous life domains, and so I kind of capture that into one because I have projects, there's initiatives, there's like these bold ideas that I want to achieve. There's this like day to day or like content that's like recurring, right? So I kind of try to capture it all into one thing. And so that process of me trying to capture it into one thing was, I called it inspiration. Inspiration for me in this life domain classification means, what am I doing to inspire myself? What am I thinking about to inspire others? What am I saying? How's my relationships with others in terms of, what are my bold ideas, right? So it's just kind of a consolidation of like my bold ideas that I had, the projects that I want to work on. It could then blossom into a career or something financial, right? But inspiration is, what am I doing to inspire myself, inspire others? So that kind of encapsulates that, right? So I think I'm at a 40 out of 100 for that. So I think I'm inspiring people maybe on a one-to-one basis, but I think I have a broader reach, broader audience to potentially reach out to. So that's the inspiration one. And then quality of life kind of captures everything else, right? So it's like my living, right? Where am I living? My travel, just like habits and, just like daily routines, or my planning is a big one, or just personal admin, paying the bills, like all these different things that maybe you've written down in the activities, right? But everything, it's a catch-all kind of thing, but it's a overall quality of life, right? That's not captured in career, my relationships with human connections, financial, health and wellness, or my projects and stuff with inspiration. And so these are my 6 life domains. And so you can create as few or as many as you want, right? So for example, I've seen people create, just little as three, right? One as like life, relationships, and work, right? Maybe you can even do two, work and life. It's up to you, right? If you've heard of Life Book by John and Missy Butcher, they have 12 dimensions, as they call it. There's health and fitness, intellectual, emotional, character, spiritual, love relationship, parenting, social, career, financial, quality of life, and life vision. So there's, you can go as few as 2 or 3. You can create as many 10, 12, 15, right? I would ideally probably like to keep it between, 5 to 9. So that you can remember them off the top of your head, right? I mean, that's the reason why phone numbers are only 10 digits, so you can memorize them easily. Side note. So I would try to keep it between, 5 to 10, 5 to 9, 5 to 10. But if there are so many that you want to deep dive into and there are these subcategories, right, then go for it, right? It's like for me, parenting is not one of them, obviously. But there may be one obviously important for you, and that may, deem it to be its own life domain. So you can name it whatever you want, life domain, dimensions, pillars, etc. And you can have as many as you want, but the goal right now for this activity is for you to look at those activities that you wrote down and then create these life domains, right? And then rate them. Rate them from 1 to 100. If you realize your maximum potential in the life domain, where are you now compared to that 100? So you have that baseline. This is my ratings on February 6th. So whenever this publishes, I did this a few weeks ago, right? And then once you've rated them, right, you're going to go back in here and it's this is a bonus. You don't necessarily have to do it. But what you can do is, if it's in a table format here, which is the reason why I put it in a table format. I basically classified each of the activities into a life domain. Now, some of these are going to be multiple. Some of these may be tough to categorize, right? But the reason that we're doing this is not to attach these activities one-to-one, right? It's like playing sports is health and wellness and human connections, just naturally, right? It's not to connect it, one-to-one there, right? But it's to get a general understanding of what are all the activities that you're doing and then try to classify them, categorize them into life domains. So that's the general concept of this, right? So if you want to actually, if you are a thinker that likes to like categorize these first like this and then come into here and kind of write them out, then do that process, right? But at the end of it, right, you can have, the goal is to have these different life domains kind of pretty much paired up pretty closely with these activities, and then to rate each of those life domains where you are right now compared to your highest self, right? So that is the activity for you right now. So going into assessing and creating those life domains and rating them right now. And if you want throughout the process, or if you want to do it afterwards, etc., then creating that full list of tying them, the activity to the life domain, right? So hopefully you can see now that we're starting to build this, like we built this foundation of all the activities. Now we're trying to categorize them, classify them into these domains that we have in our lives, right? We're going to have these dimensions and domains whether we think about it or not, but we're just trying to label them and categorize them so we can be more intentional about improving them and addressing them so that we can become the person that we want to be. So hopefully that makes sense. again, take time doing this. Don't use mine necessarily. Don't use what I said for examples of others. Come up with your own, because when you come up with your own, you will want to stick with them more. You will persuade yourself. You will believe in those dimensions yourself when you write those dimensions out yourself, those domains out yourself, instead of just blindly following what others have said, right? So create those for yourself, and then you will be bought in because you created them yourself, right? So that's the main thing here. Create those life domains and rate them. Deep breath. You got it? Awesome. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Hopefully that made sense. And please take your time doing this. Go deep, deep, deep. So thank you for watching another episode, another lesson in this TLDR of Life course. And I will see you next week.